Donald John Trump was born on June 14, 1946, in Queens, New York City. As the fourth of 5 children, his family was wealthy and well-established in the business world. His father, Fred Trump, was a real estate mogul, famous for his developments. In Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island, Fred's empire, which began with modest apartment buildings, eventually grew into a real estate empire that gave the Trump family considerable influence in the New York real estate market. From a young age, Donald was immersed in the world of business. His father was a stern, no-nonsense man, and Donald often felt the weight of his father's expectations. At the age of 13, after displaying signs of rebellion, Donald was sent to the New York Military Academy. It was a tough experience, but it also shaped the man who would later become known for his combative, competitive personality. Throughout his time at the academy, Donald was determined to prove himself and earn respect, showing the first glimpses of his relentless drive to succeed. Donald graduated from the military academy in 1964, and while he had been given the foundation for leadership, his ambitions were not yet fully formed. After high school, Trump enrolled at Fordham University in New York City, but after 2 years, he transferred to the prestigious Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. Trump's academic performance at Wharton wasn't exceptional by any means, but he excelled in the field of real estate, which would later become the cornerstone of his career. While at Wharton, Trump became obsessed with the idea of success, power, and wealth. This obsession drove him to study the methods of other successful business figures, and he quickly developed his own approach to business. Trump's first exposure to the world of large-scale development came when he worked for his father's real estate company after graduating in 1968. The company, originally called E. Trump and Son, was based in Queens and primarily focused on middle-income housing. Trump quickly saw the potential for expansion and sought to expand the family business into Manhattan, an area that Fred Trump had largely avoided. However, Fred Trump was hesitant to venture into Manhattan, fearing the increased risk and competition. But Donald, brimming with confidence and a strong sense of ambition, pushed forward. His first major project in Manhattan was the renovation of the Commodore Hotel, which Trump acquired in 1974. This was no small feat, as the hotel was struggling and in disrepair. Trump saw an opportunity to transform it into a luxurious property. With his characteristic boldness, he secured a $70 million loan from the Hyatt hotel chain to fund the renovation, and the result was the Grand Hyatt Hotel, which opened in 1980. The success of the Grand Hyatt Hotel marked a turning point in Trump's career. It gave him the financial backing and public recognition to continue pursuing larger and more ambitious projects. Over the next decade, Trump's real estate empire expanded dramatically. He built Trump Tower, a 58-story skyscraper in the heart of Manhattan, which became the headquarters of his growing business empire. The tower's completion in 1983 cemented Trump's reputation as a force to be reckoned with in the world of real estate. But Trump's ambitions went far beyond just real estate. In the mid-1980s, he began acquiring casinos in Atlantic City. The Trump Taj Mahal, which opened in 1990, was the pinnacle of his casino empire. It was a massive project, costing over $1 billion to build, and it was heavily marketed as the largest and most luxurious casino in the world. However, despite the initial buzz, the Taj Mahal struggled financially due to high debt and intense competition in the Atlantic City market. Trump was forced to file for bankruptcy protection in 1991, but he was able to bounce back from the setback, continuing to expand his brand and reputation. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, Trump was a frequent subject of tabloid headlines, with his larger-than-life persona dominating the media. His divorces, business deals, and social life were regularly covered, and he was often portrayed as the quintessential self-made billionaire. But behind the glitzy facade of his public life, Trump was grappling with mounting financial pressures. Despite his lavish lifestyle, his businesses faced financial difficulties, leading to several rounds of bankruptcy filings over the years. Nevertheless, Trump's resilience in the face of these financial crises helped shape his identity as a businessman who could weather any storm. His ability to bounce back from near financial ruin became part of his legend. He continually adapted his business strategies and moved into new areas, including licensing his name for everything from Trump-branded neckties to luxury hotels, further expanding his brand. Trump's mastery of self-promotion and media savvy became a defining feature of his business career, as he cultivated an image of an invincible, larger-than-life figure. While his business successes were impressive, Trump's personal life was often filled with drama and scandal. In 1977, he married Ivana Zelničková, a Czech model and former athlete, and together they had 3 children, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric. Ivana Trump played a significant role in helping Trump manage his growing business empire, but their marriage eventually ended in a very public divorce in 1992. The media frenzy surrounding the divorce, including Trump's extramarital affair with actress Marla Maples, only fueled his celebrity status. Trump married Marla Maples in 1993, and they had one daughter, Tiffany. However, their marriage ended in divorce in 1999. Despite his personal setbacks, Trump remained an unwaveringly ambitious figure, continuously reinventing himself in the public eye. Throughout the 1990s, he faced financial struggles, but his knack for securing high-profile deals kept him in the media spotlight. The Trump name became synonymous with success, luxury, and excess. The world was watching as Trump navigated the highs and lows of his personal and professional life. By the early 2000s, Trump had firmly established himself as a global brand. His properties, including golf courses, hotels, and real estate developments, were scattered across the globe. The Trump Organization continued to grow, and Trump's name was associated with wealth, power, and success. But it wasn't just his real estate ventures that kept him in the public eye. In 2004, Trump launched the hit reality TV show The Apprentice, where he became famous for his catchphrase, "You're fired." The show became a massive hit, and Trump's television career gave him an entirely new platform for self-promotion. Through The Apprentice, Trump reached millions of viewers and solidified his status as a celebrity businessman. The show was a major success, and Trump was able to parlay it into greater business opportunities. His appearance on television introduced him to a new audience, expanding his influence and further solidifying his persona as a no-nonsense businessman with an eye for success. However, even as Trump enjoyed new heights of fame, his personal and professional lives were not without controversy. His comments and actions often sparked outrage, and he was frequently criticized for his brash demeanor, divisive rhetoric, and controversial stances on various issues. But as always, Trump remained unshaken, using his public persona to his advantage and continuing to build his brand. Rising tensions and new horizons, the 1990s were a period of highs and lows for Donald Trump. After the struggles in Atlantic City, where his casinos faced financial turmoil, the world seemed to turn its attention away from him for a while. But Donald never could stand the feeling of being overlooked. The fire inside him burned relentlessly, a driving force that never allowed him to rest. Despite the mounting pressure, Donald refused to let his dreams slip away. The Trump Tower stood proudly as a symbol of his ambition, a monument to the man who had refused to give up even when it seemed like the whole world was against him. The question was always, how could Donald rise again? It seemed as though his financial troubles might be the end of his story, but instead, they became the canvas for the next chapter of his life. Through the 1990s, Donald faced financial difficulties and personal challenges, yet he remained a figure of fascination in the media. His name still carried weight in the real estate world, and his personality was larger than life. But beneath the flashy headlines, there was a man quietly rebuilding himself, not just as a businessman, but as a cultural icon. His businesses, while struggling, were still a part of a brand that had become undeniable. People still knew his name. He had built a reputation for resilience, for picking himself up after every fall, and in this moment, it was more important than ever to prove that his brand was more than just glitz and glamour. In 1999, Donald experienced another setback. His second marriage ended in divorce. It was a painful chapter, but one that would eventually lead him into a new phase of self-discovery. The media loved to cover his personal life, and the public was always interested in what Donald would do next. But he was more than just his relationships. He was a man in search of a new direction, and he wasn't going to stop until he found it. It was during this time in the early 2000s that something new began to take shape. The world knew Donald Trump for his towering buildings and his high-profile lifestyle, but now the world would come to know him for something different. In 2004, The Apprentice debuted, and the television world was introduced to the phrase that would forever become his trademark: "You're fired." It was simple, direct, and as blunt as the man himself. Yet there was something about that moment, something about his unapologetic confidence that resonated with people. He wasn't just playing a role, he was himself. As the show took off, so did Donald's profile. He wasn't just a businessman anymore. He was a TV star, a reality television icon. The show brought him into the homes of millions, introducing a new generation to the real estate mogul they had only heard about before. But even as he basked in this newfound spotlight, Donald knew that he wasn't done. Far from it. The power of television was undeniable, and he knew that it was only a matter of time before he would find a new way to use it. But for now, he took his place in the spotlight. His success on The Apprentice was like a breath of fresh air after the years of financial strain. Yet even as he reveled in the glory of his television career, there were whispers in the background. People were beginning to take notice of something else about Donald Trump: his political views. Donald had always been vocal, never shy about expressing his thoughts on politics or society. Over the years, his words had sparked outrage, but they also attracted attention. In the early 2000s, as the political climate in the United States became more divided, Donald began to test the waters. He wasn't just the brash businessman. He was becoming a public figure with opinions on everything, from the economy to national security. His thoughts were bold, unapologetic, and at times controversial, but that only made him more intriguing. It wasn't until 2011, though, that Trump made his first serious foray into the political world. That year, he made headlines by publicly questioning the legitimacy of President Barack Obama's birth certificate. His doubts about Obama's birthplace became a focal point in the media, and though many saw it as a publicity stunt, it was a move that would forever tie his name to the world of politics. The media was fascinated, and Donald's name was on everyone's lips. Some dismissed him as a joke, but others started to take him seriously. It was clear that Donald Trump wasn't afraid to speak his mind, no matter the consequences. While many saw his 2011 political moves as nothing more than a publicity grab, something deeper was stirring within Donald. The idea of running for public office, of stepping onto a stage far larger than anything he had ever imagined, began to take root in his mind. He was used to being in the public eye, but could he truly stand among the most powerful figures in the world? Was he ready to take the ultimate leap and try his hand at politics? By the time 2015 arrived, something had changed. Donald Trump, the businessman, had become something more. He was now a household name, and when he announced his candidacy for the presidency of the United States, the world stood still for a moment. Was this just another of his wild stunts, or was he serious this time? Few people took him seriously at first. After all, he was a businessman, not a politician. He had no political experience. But Donald Trump had something that many of the seasoned politicians didn't: the ability to connect with people on a level that was beyond policy. He spoke to the frustration, the anger, the sense of disenfranchisement that many Americans were feeling. When he announced his run for president, many thought it was just another chapter in the book of Donald Trump's unpredictable life. They didn't realize that this chapter would be the one to change the course of American history. Donald's political career began not with grand speeches or deep policy proposals, but with a single statement that would echo through the media for months: "Make America Great Again." It was a simple slogan, but it resonated deeply with a segment of the American population that felt left behind by the changing world. People were tired of career politicians, tired of the establishment. They wanted someone who would speak their language, who would challenge the status quo. And in Donald Trump, they saw a man who wasn't afraid to do just that. As the 2016 election unfolded, the world watched in awe as Donald Trump defied expectations at every turn. His blunt, no-holds-barred approach to campaigning was like nothing anyone had ever seen before. He spoke to crowds with a fire and passion that was unmatched, and he wasn't afraid to go after anyone who stood in his way. Whether it was political opponents, the media, or anyone who disagreed with him, Donald Trump wasn't afraid to speak his mind. And that, in many ways, made him even more compelling to those who were searching for something new, something different. A new battlefront. The summer of 2015 marked the beginning of what seemed like an impossible journey. When Donald Trump first announced his candidacy for president, many laughed. They saw him as nothing more than a businessman playing a game, a self-promoter seeking attention. But as the months passed, it became clear that Trump was no ordinary candidate. He was different. He spoke a language that resonated with millions of Americans, particularly those who felt disconnected from the political elites who had long dominated Washington. He was unapologetic, brash, and most importantly, he was giving voice to a sentiment that many had been feeling but hadn't known how to express. Trump's candidacy wasn't built on the traditional promises of Washington politicians. He didn't offer sweeping policy proposals or a detailed blueprint for the future of the country. Instead, he offered something far simpler, yet much more profound: a sense of hope that the nation could be restored to its former glory. His slogan, "Make America Great Again," became a rallying cry for millions who felt that America had lost its way, that it had lost something important along the journey. As the 2016 Republican primaries unfolded, Trump's rise was nothing short of meteoric. He was never a typical politician, and he had no intention of becoming one. He didn't care for the political gamesmanship, the back and forth that had become standard practice in Washington. Instead, he bulldozed through debates, media appearances, and rallies with a kind of raw energy and charisma that captivated the public. He didn't just talk at people, he talked to them as if they were his friends, his allies. And they listened. But his rise wasn't without its controversies. His blunt rhetoric, his disregard for political correctness, and his willingness to speak his mind made him a lightning rod for criticism. From the very beginning, his comments on immigration, trade, and foreign policy were met with fierce backlash. Yet despite this, his popularity continued to surge. He tapped into a vein of anger and frustration that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. Many Americans were tired of the status quo, tired of politicians who they felt didn't understand their struggles, and tired of watching their country become something they didn't recognize. Donald Trump gave them a voice, even if that voice was unconventional, sometimes divisive, and often controversial. The 2016 election was unlike anything the country had seen before. Trump's message was simple but powerful. America needed to put itself first. His rhetoric, while polarizing, resonated deeply with a significant portion of the American electorate. He promised to bring back jobs, to renegotiate trade deals, to crack down on illegal immigration, and to restore the country's global standing. For many, this was the antidote to years of perceived decline. He wasn't a polished politician, but that was part of his appeal. He was a man of the people, someone who wasn't beholden to the special interests that had long controlled Washington. But Trump's campaign also raised concerns. His critics argued that his views were too extreme, that his rhetoric was dangerous, and that he was fostering division in an already polarized country. The media coverage of his campaign was relentless, with every word he said scrutinized and dissected. Some feared that Trump's bombastic style would ultimately backfire, but his supporters saw it as a refreshing departure from the usual political establishment. As the Republican primaries continued, Trump faced opposition from well-established figures within the party. His closest rivals included seasoned politicians like Senator Ted Cruz, Governor John Kasich, and former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, but none of them could match Trump's raw appeal. While the others played by the traditional rules, Trump rewrote the game entirely. He won state after state, turning what many thought would be a fractured primary season into a clear victory. By the time the Republican National Convention rolled around in July 2016, Donald Trump was the presumptive nominee, and his path to the White House was becoming increasingly clear. The general election, however, would prove to be an entirely different battle. Trump's opponent, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, was a seasoned politician with decades of experience. She had the backing of the Democratic establishment, a formidable campaign apparatus, and an extensive record of public service. But as the election season unfolded, it became evident that Clinton, while competent, wasn't connecting with voters in the same way Trump was. She represented the political establishment that many Americans had grown disillusioned with, and Trump was running against that establishment, promising to drain the swamp in Washington. The 2016 election campaign was an intense, bitter, and often tumultuous battle. Trump's rallies were filled with fervor, with thousands of supporters chanting his name, waving signs, and expressing their enthusiasm for his vision of a new America. Clinton's rallies, by contrast, lacked the same level of energy, and many felt that her campaign was plagued by a sense of entitlement and a lack of genuine connection with voters. As the election approached, it became clear that the race was too close to call. Trump's campaign had defied the odds at every turn, and now, with Election Day looming, it seemed possible that he might just pull off the ultimate upset. On November 8, 2016, the world watched in disbelief as Donald Trump emerged victorious in a shocking election result. Against all odds, he had won the presidency. The polls had predicted a Clinton victory, the pundits had all but written him off, but in the end, it was Trump who captured the hearts and minds of a majority of the Electoral College. The victory was historic, and it sent shockwaves through the political world. Trump, the businessman, the reality TV star, the outsider, had won the most powerful office in the world. Trump's victory was a testament to his ability to read the political landscape and to tap into the frustrations of millions of Americans. He was no longer just a businessman or a celebrity. He was now the 45th President of the United States. His inauguration in January 2017 marked the beginning of a new era, one that would be defined by his unorthodox leadership style and his willingness to challenge the status quo. As president, Trump faced numerous challenges, both from within his own party and from the opposition. His time in office would be marked by controversy, division, and unprecedented events. But through it all, Donald Trump remained a figure of power, controversy, and resilience, determined to shape the course of history in his own image. Whether you loved him or hated him, one thing was undeniable. Donald Trump had achieved something that few others had ever dared to dream. His journey, which began in the high-rise buildings of New York and the tabloids of celebrity gossip, had now taken him to the highest office in the land. And while his time in the White House was filled with drama, challenges and hard-fought battles, Trump's story was far from over. His rise to the presidency was more than just a personal triumph. It was a reflection of the deep divisions and aspirations within American society, a story of ambition, resilience, and the pursuit of power.